form. Trade deadlines in some leagues have come and gone. Others are on the horizon. You need this win either for playoff positioning or to just get into the playoffs. Shout out to Matthew Berry for showing love to Mark Andrews. Our hearts are with you, as well as Joe Burrow.
We didn't have a Joe Burrow jersey, but otherwise I'd have done a Donna Kelsey with half Burrow, half
all of you affected by
Mark
those
Andrews.
unfortunate losses and all unfortunate injury losses for that matter.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, you start off by saying, hopefully you're still in it. I have to say, if you are not still in it, and you're watching us, that is dedication.
Yeah.
And we love
those
you.
are the real fans.
And that
those are real fans.
And that means that you're a good league mate. Whatever you do, don't check out. For
Still set your lineup.
Set your lineup.
Set them lineups.
Be competitive. Play for pride, professional pride, because the eye in the sky does not lie.
Why are you looking right at Lawrence when you say that?
I was not looking at Lawrence.
He actually was looking at you.
I was not looking at anybody. I was looking down. You were like, don't project. Don't project on me, Barry. Matthew Berry, Lawrence Jackson.
Maybe it was Matt. Maybe you was looking at me because of our show lead. Maybe
exactly,
it was
that's
you
what it
looking
is.
at.
I was just that was a cheap way of me to get a shot in at you on our show.
Well,
league.
guess what? I'm still setting my lineup, and I'm going to mess up somebody's playoff chances. That's what I'm going to do.
That's what I appreciate that.
With Tommy DeVito at quarterback today.
Can we?
You have had serious
injury issues. Can we talk about the Suns out, guns out crew over here?
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, we ready. We ready right here.
I see y'all. Hit us up.
Not to brag, but Suns out, guns out over there. But just before we went on air, I ate a donut. So
yeah, you did. Yeah. Nice glazed donut.
Really gobbled it down as well.
Listen, when you're
wait till you're on the air.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not? Enjoy the donut. I'm sure people at home eat donuts right now.
I'm just saying, there's two ways to go. You can either work out like these two guys, look buff and fit, or you just get baggier clothes, which is my kind of way. Like it's working right. It's working smarter, not harder. Is what that is.
And look, nobody would have known. Nobody would have known you even ate that donut.
No, I know.
I will
I'm
never
all about
forget.
honesty.
Matthew, I'll never forget when we were in Buffalo and that night we talk about a lot of the time. But another element of that night is that you bought a Bills hoodie to wear on the show the next day, and producer Damien, who was getting it for you, asked you what size you wanted, and you were like, triple XL. I'm like, what?
Double XL. But yes, double XL.
I was like, you're not a double XL, but you're a baggy man. And
I love it baggy.
Yeah.
It gives me room to grow into. 1,000%.
One day.
I like you corrected me on the triple
You want donuts?
XL.
Well, you can either work out or just get an extra size sweatshirt.
One day.
Just again.
One day, not today. We need to talk about this night in Buffalo because it's legendary, like John Wick's night of the impossible task.
There's just a lot of strange elements to the night. Dan Graziano was there, wings, there's a lot going on.
Well, I don't want to be here that day y'all talk about
We
it.
appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always, both on Peacock and on YouTube. Hit us up with the hashtag #FFPregame. We will answer as many of your questions as possible, or just comment on the NBC, or the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. All right, let's get into our top storylines for Week 11. Matthew, lead us off.
My storyline, Tony Pollard. This is a make-or-break week for Tony Pollard. And part of the reason it's a make-or-break week for Tony Pollard is because last week was a make-or-break week for Tony Pollard, and he didn't do anything as well. Look, no team in the NFL has allowed more rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs than the Carolina Panthers. They've also given up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Only Christian McCaffrey, this is a crazy stat, only Christian McCaffrey has more inside the 20 rush attempts than Tony Pollard this year. Tony Pollard hasn't scored since week 1. And so in a game in which he's literally second in the NFL in red zone rush attempts, and he's going against the team that has given up the most rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs. If Tony Pollard can't do it this week, we have to bail. I have him as a top 10 play this week. I have him at running back 6. Hope springs eternal. I'm hanging tough with a Rotoworld cover guy, Tony Pollard. But Tony, we're begging. Come on. And it's really not Tony. It's Mike McCarthy.
Is it though?
It's Tony a little bit.
It's a little bit of Tony. I know.
They're giving him the ball.
This is what I know.
Him,
This is what I know. Zeke would have punched in those goal line touchdowns a week ago. Shout out to Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, who looks pretty good in a Patriot uniform. Conversely, Matthew, my storyline is the Cowboys quarterback. That's my quarterback, Dak Prescott.
Okay.
And your man Eights, CeeDee Lamb, who are on a historic tear. So today, Dak Prescott, if he throws for at least 300 passing yards with 3 touchdown passes, he will become the 4th player in NFL history with 4 such games in a row. Meanwhile, CeeDee Lamb has 3 consecutive games, to make sure I get this right, first player in NFL history with double-digit catches and at least 150, there's Dak arriving, 150 receiving yards in 3 consecutive games. Only 5 other receivers in NFL history have 3 consecutive 150-yard games. He's done it with double-digit receptions in all 3 games. So this Panthers matchup is interesting because statistically you see that they're, relatively speaking, tougher against quarterbacks and receivers. Well, that has a lot to do with the fact that the Panthers' offense is terrible, and most teams are either in a positive or neutral game script against them. So I don't think they face that many passes. In fact, I think they face the fewest passes in the league. So the question is going to be, I'm piggybacking off of your storyline here, question is going to be, do Dak and Eights get theirs in the first half and maybe turn to Tony Pollard with a banged-up Rico Dowdle in the second half to salt this game away? What I do know is we all know the facts and the narratives when it comes to the Cowboys in the playoffs. In fantasy, they are delivering.
They're 10.5-point favorites in this one. Carolina's actually been weirdly good against wide receivers. They've been more of a, shout out to Denny Carter, a run funnel defense.
Do you know how many times we heard funnel last week in your absence?
A lot of funneling.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of funneling.
I'm back to put an end to that.
Yeah, when
I've come back from North Carolina to win this funnel chat.
Thank you very much. When Denny Carter wasn't like destroying my guillotine leagues, he was funneling quite a bit. But yeah, I'm with you. So it'll be really interesting to see here, and it'll be Jay and I've talked about this a lot on Fantasy Football Happy Hour. If if Dak does that, if he pulls off what you're saying, he's already in the MVP race, but he's especially depending on what happens on Monday night with Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. But there's going to be a strong case to be made for Offensive Player of the Year in CeeDee Lamb or MVP for Dak.
Yep, Dak Prescott his past 4 games has been the best quarterback in football, and it's not even close. And CeeDee Lamb's been the best wide receiver in football his past 4 games. So Dak, he's going to need a marquee win if he beats Philadelphia in a few weeks. I think he gets right there in the MVP discussion because his numbers are as good as anyone right now.
Yeah, still at over plus 3,000 for the MVP. So if you like that, like Michael said, it'll be 4 straight games of 300. Make sure you get that ticket in. My storyline. My storyline is another quarterback who's been playing better than what people give him credit for. Well, we giving him credit on this show is Russell Wilson in these Broncos. What?
You're right.
It's the Russell-sance.
You're on this show. Yeah.
It's a Russell-sance.
Yes, it's a Russell-sance. It's just the Denver Broncos as a whole, as a team, is just playing better. We've seen them back-to-back weeks beat the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, 2 perennial playoff teams. Now they get at home the Minnesota Vikings, who are rolling, and I think they can actually make a run for the playoffs here, despite being under 500. Here you go. So they got Minnesota today at home. Then you get Cleveland with no Deshaun Watson. Then you got Houston Texans. You got the Chargers. You got Detroit. I just think they playing better as an overall team. Wow. Russell's been playing good the whole season, really. It just hasn't been noticed because they're under 500. But with teams like the Browns losing their quarterback now, the Bengals losing Joe Burrow, this opens up for some teams like the Broncos, maybe the Chargers. These Broncos and Chargers type teams are going to have a chance to get in this playoff race.
Sean Payton and Davis Webb have done a great job with Russell Wilson this year, and credit to him for whatever changes he made to return close to form this year. Jay, I'm old enough to remember.
Let's ride.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's not even a joke anymore. About to ride to the playoffs. I'm old enough to remember, Jay, when there was going to be a fire sale in Denver.
Yeah.
That felt like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it did. And look, their defense is what's turned around as well. Russell Wilson has been solid, but it's really the defense, which has been the 10th best defense in football the past month, playing Mahomes twice and Josh Allen once in that stretch.
Everybody wanted to fire Vance Joseph after their 70-point
but
Dolphins
they've turned it
performance,
around.
and they turned it around. Been the best defense.
Sometimes it takes getting 70 points scored on you to turn the tide. That's what it takes.
It's also a long season. All right, Jay, your storyline.
Need more from Kenny Pickett. Michael.
Dog, that ship might have sailed. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that.
It might have sailed, but he's QB 28 on the season.
Is it you need more or something?
Yes.
Doesn't there have to be a bar
I need more than zero.
Before he
I need more than zero.
I
need a positive integer from Kenny Pickett.
I need a win in the show league, and I'm starting Will Levis over Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, it's been the absolute debacle in Pittsburgh offensively. And look, he's QB 28 on the season. and he's been like healthy the whole year. It's almost impossible with the amount of quarterbacks who have gone down. He has fewer fantasy points than Justin Fields, hasn't played in more than a month. He has fewer fantasy points than Bryce Young, who missed the game and has been terrible, which is really rough. And so, like, he has weapons. He has Deontay Johnson and George Pickens are really good wide receivers. Pat Freiermuth comes back.
Yeah.
Harris and Warren in the backfield. Like, they should have enough that he should be better than what he is. And today his passing prop set 171.5 yards against Cleveland in a perfect weather game. Like, you should just never be set that low if you're a solid NFL quarterback, and he's not shown that. So he needs to do something today against the Cleveland defense that on paper should really eat him up. But look, this Pittsburgh team, look at their schedule. They could be 11-3. They get solid quarterback play out of Kenny Pickett, just 6 out of 10 games, they could be 11-3. They play the Patriots, the Colts, the Cardinals after DTR today, so he needs to lift fantasy-wise, real-life-wise, betting-wise, everything. Kenny Pickett needs more.
He keeps getting, Dorian Thompson. And I'll be honest, like, he was somebody that I liked as a preseason sleeper. He had a great preseason, and I was just like, so I mean, I want to own that, and I was wrong about that.
Half PPR, Marquise Brown, Jalen Warren, or Najee Harris, Matthew?
I'm going to go with a guy that isn't playing the Cleveland Browns on the road with a bad quarterback. Yeah. If I had to pick a Steelers running back, give me Warren over Najee Harris. Yeah. Sorry, Jay. But
well, I mean, that's supposed to be the split now, right? He's supposed to be the lead guy.
Well, I mean, Warren was named the starter. Yeah. He had more playing time last week than Najee Harris. Both guys will play. But you're facing the Browns, tough defense. Give me Hollywood Brown, who, again, is going to get a big target share. We think this is a sneaky shootout between the Texans and the Cardinals in Houston.
Who knew that was going to be an interesting game, week 11, coming into the season, right?
Anyway, so, I mean, with Kyler back, I think, that entire offense takes you feel good about Marquise Brown. You feel good about Trey McBride. Feel good about Rondell Moore, who very quietly got 8 targets last week. I assume somebody has him in your 20-team league, but for deeper leagues, Rondell Moore is suddenly interesting, especially because we don't expect Michael Wilson.
I'm more of a Michael Wilson guy.
But we don't expect Michael Wilson to play today. Right. So anyway, Hollywood Brown is your answer there.
Sneaky thing with Hollywood Brown too, going up against the Texans, when they score quickly. They score with big explosive plays, which means that the Cardinals, I think, will be down and they'll have time because the Texans, they don't soak up the clock with these 10-minute drives.
And by the way, I like the Cardinals. I mean, we'll get into this later, but the Cardinals are 5.5-point underdogs in this game. I like CJ Stroud a lot, but he ain't 5.5 points better than Kyler Murray. I'm sorry. Like, we'll get into this, but I like the Cardinals on the road to cover.
Speaking of scoring quickly, let's get to burning questions.
Yeah.
Good to see you back, Jay.
Wait for Lawrence.
We had
wait for it.
Yeah, but last week we had Denny in it. We love Denny, but it just wasn't the same. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Why does my outfit look like a Spidey suit? Like I look like I'm just like Spider-Man.
It's like a kerchief or something. What is this around your neck?
I don't know what that is.
So you mentioned scoring quickly. Nobody scores quicker. Nobody scores more fantasy points with less than one Devon Achane, or as I really like Ashane. That didn't stick.
It only stuck here.
Yeah.
I like Ashane.
That was struck down in the Supreme Court.
But he's back off of IR. You're starting him, right? 100%. And what are we expecting in terms of the committee situation? Raheem Mostert, and I mean maybe some Jeff Wilson, but primarily Mostert and Achane.
Here's what's great. It doesn't matter.
Sure doesn't.
It doesn't matter. We could say 70-30 Mostert. You're still starting Achane.
All he needs is one.
All he needs is one. Again, Achane's had 3 different games this year where he's gotten at least 10 touches. And we expect 10 touches from Devon Achane today. In those 3 games with 10 touches, he has 120 yards from scrimmage in every one of those games, at least 120 yards from scrimmage. You couldn't ask for a better matchup. Raiders coming in, allowing almost 150 scrimmage yards per game to opposing running backs over the last 4 weeks. Las Vegas allows the most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. And so in a game in which the Dolphins have had 2 weeks to prepare at home after getting boat raced overseas, they're like, hey, we need to prove ourselves. We can win against good teams. Now, the Raiders are not a good team, but they're 2-0 under Antonio Pierce, and they're coming in. And so, I think Mike McDaniel puts it all out there. Again, all the reports are no limitations on Devon Achane. Right. They want to welcome him back. I think both guys are top 20 plays to me. Both guys, I would not be shocked if on Monday morning on Fantasy Football Happy Hour, we're talking about how both guys were top 10.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I know it's his first game back, and I know you do rankings as well, Lawrence. Was there any temptation on your part, given how ridiculously efficient Devon Achane is, to put him in your top 10?
There was certainly it is a little bit
Temptation,
because there's a little bit of temptation. I thought about it. Again, you sort of still want to see it. I specifically put them both inside my top 20 because I was like, you're starting both guys here. But again, like we're waiting for Jalen Waddle to start. I think it's a big Jalen Waddle game, and Tyreek is always going to get his as well. And given Aiden O'Connell on the road at Miami for a 1:00 game, I think there's could be a defensive touchdown or a short. You know what I mean? Like I'm nervous about the number of possessions that Miami gets. But you're starting if you have a Miami skill player that you would normally start, you're starting him today.
So I mean, this is a gift and a curse here for SLH here. He's got Achane and Mostert. He's also got Gibbs and Montgomery along with Marquise Brown, who you already said he likes. But he needs 2 running backs and a flex for full PPR. So he's got the Dolphins backfield and the Lions backfield along with Marquise Brown. What do you say?
All right, so let's start with the obvious one, and that's Gibbs. That's Gibbs against a Bears team that allows the most receptions to opposing running backs in the NFL. Like they are brutal in terms of receiving yards. So Gibbs is the guy. So then it's either do you want to double up on the line? I don't think Marquise Brown is in this conversation.
So it's Gibbs, you get him in, Brown, you get him out.
Right,
decide the
1,000%. So now it's just do you want to double up on the Dolphins? Do you want to double up on the Lions here? And I'm going to go with the Dolphins guys. Here's why I'm going to go with the Dolphins guys. I don't think you can screw this up. I have all 4 guys, both Lions players, both Dolphins running backs inside my top 20. But what I'm doing here is that I think I feel like one of the Dolphins running backs is definitely having a huge game. I think they likely both do. I feel really good about Gibbs. Again, I have Montgomery still inside my top 20, so you're asking me to nitpick here. But I feel like this way you're guaranteeing, I don't know, it's easier, I don't know how to explain this. Basically, by starting both Miami running backs, you're guaranteeing you're getting that production.
Yes. Right.
And I know that Gibbs is going to get his. Whereas if you started Gibbs and Montgomery, I don't know. If you started Gibbs, Montgomery, and Achane, it could be Mostert that gets it. You know what I mean?
Also,
or vice versa. Does that make sense?
Like this is a very unique
The
situation.
same could be said for Montgomery. If you start Gibbs in the Dolphins backfield, Montgomery could get his too. That's an interesting conundrum.
I think Montgomery's the least likely though, because Chicago have the best run defense in the NFL somehow this season. And also, Miami are 14-point favorites, and the Lions are 7.5-point favorites. So it's just much more likely that they will be running a ton against the soft run defense relative to the best.
Correct. And the other thing, again, you're right. Over the last 4 weeks, no team has allowed fewer rushing yards per game than the Chicago Bears of all things.
But have they played the Lions, who have one of the best running games?
100%. But just the fact that Gibbs last week got all 4 of the goal-to-go carries, the fact that Montgomery's production was from that big run, and how sustainable is that? Again, you have to nitpick at this level, but that's the argument here.
Here's what SLH should come to grips with. You might be wrong. There's a chance that, whichever direction you go in, somebody on your – because you got 4 good players. Somebody might go – and Marquise Brown may go off, to Matthew's point, a little while ago.
Again, I don't think you can screw it up because I like all these guys today, but you're asking me, that's what I'm telling you. I would start the Dolphins guys and Jahmyr Gibbs. That's what me, your pal Matty, your buddy Matty.
And don't hold it against him.
Donut Matty over here.
Donut Matty? That's it now?
Okay. One last thing on Devin Achane. With his injury, it seemed like it was really a line ball cause where they were even going to put him on IR, and they were just being conservative by doing that. It wasn't like a Justin Jefferson thing where he's missed 2 weeks beyond the initial 4. With Achane, it seems like he should be 100% ready to go.
Not to steal our thunder on this next burning question, but you kind of touched on it with this user question or Twitter question from SLH. Thank you for the question. Keep them coming. #FFPregame. Let's unpack a little bit more expectations against this stout Chicago Bears run defense, Matthew. How to manage the Montgomery-Gibbs split as both a fantasy manager, but also what you expect from the Lions.
Well, look, again, so I have Gibbs at running back 5. I have Montgomery at running back 17. So, pretty clear difference there to me. And I could get, again, it's a unique situation. You might say, well, you have Montgomery ranked ahead of both Dolphins guys. So if I went by your rankings, I should start Montgomery. But again, because you have both Dolphins guys, I think just sort of guaranteeing production there.
Nuance.
My concern, though, is that in a full game in Week 10 was his fewest carries in a season, this Montgomery. And he played under 40% of the snaps. It was Jahmyr Gibbs as well. Think about Jahmyr Gibbs. No team in the NFL has allowed more receiving yards to running back than the Chicago Bears. Over the past 4 games, Gibbs has an almost 18% target share. He's involved in the passing game in a way that Montgomery just isn't. And so, as we sort of talk about game script here, again, I still think you start Montgomery. He's played 4 full games this year. He's averaging over 21 fantasy points per game. He scored at least 1 touchdown in all 4 of those games. I bet he gets in the end zone today. But if you're asking me, of these guys, like if you have to start Gibbs or Montgomery, you have both guys and you only have 1 spot, I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs just because of the usage from last week and because of the way this game is likely to play out. That's where you attack the Bears is through the
air. And David Montgomery, I think, had the best run. That 75-yard touchdown was the best run in his NFL and college career put together, just like from every first level, second level, and finishing out the run to get to the end zone. I think that was his best run. You don't see that often from a David Montgomery, but you could see that every single week with Jahmyr Gibbs. And speaking on Jahmyr Gibbs, last week getting the goal line touches, interesting that on one of those touchdowns, David Montgomery was like, because they showed him mic'd up. They was like, hey, you get this one. Because it was originally going to be David Montgomery, so he possibly could have had the 2 touchdowns. So you still feel good about Montgomery down by that goal line. They're just going to use Gibbs more in that fashion.
I'm just not certain if last week was necessarily a precursor for the way these guys are going to be used.
I think it go by the game.
Exactly.
It go by the game.
It goes by flow. I think it's very much going to be like a hot hand who's in a rhythm type situation. But the passing down work, of course, would primarily go to Gibbs. Speaking of passing, Justin Fields, welcome back.
Welcome back, Justin Fields.
QB 13, right on that line of QB1, QB high end, QB2. You plugging him right back in, Matthew, against this Lions defense?
If I don't have 12 guys that are ranked ahead of him,
that math is math.
There you go, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Look, in the 2 games before he got injured, this is a guy that was averaging over 30 fantasy points per game. It's actually a nice matchup. Since week 7, Lions allow the 4th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks as well. Last year, had over 130 rushing yards in both games against the Lions as well. We've talked about this game a lot. Bears are 8-point underdogs in this game, so the expectation here is they're going to have to be throwing. It should be a fast-paced play of game. It's in Detroit on the turf, so if I'm on the line, again, I am at 13, so it depends on who else you have. But yes, for me, if you've had Fields and you're hanging on to him, right back into the lineup.
I think the other thing, too, is this Detroit defense is not very good at the moment. Yeah. Think about what they allowed Justin Herbert to do to them last week, and then think about how Justin Herbert struggled so badly against the Jets. Now, I understand the Jets are a top-tier elite defense, but that gap was really significant. And I think, and they're giving up a lot of explosive plays as well. Think about what Keenan Allen did to them. Fields, we forget this because we haven't seen him in so long. Fields is putting up monster numbers against the Broncos and the Commanders before he got hurt. So I think he'll have a big day today.
Yeah. And I like the Bears +8 too, by the way.
Again, many big names, so many big storylines involved in this game. Oh, welcome back, Khalil Herbert.
Hey now.
From injury reserve.
That's the bigger question is what do you do with these running backs?
Well then.
Oh, hey now.
Here we go.
Bye week situation is Marty he finds himself in. Khalil Herbert, Rondale Moore, who you shouted out earlier, or Quentin Johnston in full PPR. And then after you answer that, we could pick up the conversation about the Bears backfield.
I mean, listen, I mentioned Rondale Moore, but I mentioned him as a deep league guy. He got the 8 targets last week, and no Michael Wilson in a shootout game. But again, all of his stuff is usually near the line of scrimmage. Who's got the best shot at a touchdown? It's Khalil Herbert, right?
Yes.
And so with Deontay Foreman coming into this matchup, at less than 100%, ideally you're avoiding the Bears backfield.
Cool.
But Herbert's got the best shot at a touchdown of these 3 guys. So Herbert would be my answer here, and I agree with you, Marty. It is grim.
Marty he's given us 3 players, and ironically, his profile picture is the 3 Spider-Man.
Spider-Man shot today.
So I wonder if that's Khalil Herbert, Rondale Moore, and Quentin Johnston. if you did that on purpose, Marty, shout out to you, man.
That Bears backfield's a headache. Wouldn't you know it? It'd probably be the Roschon Johnson day.
I mean, exactly. I mean, the truth of the matter is that again, I have Herbert at 28. I have Foreman at 30. I have them both right there. It's really a coin flip. And the truth is that Herbert's got more upside just because we haven't seen it, more variance. But Foreman's been really, really good. He comes into, and if it wasn't for the injury, I'd have him over Herbert. It's really a coin flip between those 2 guys.
Yep. I don't know if we had Devin Singletary being the lead guy by week 11 in Houston, and yet here we are, Matthew. After that $150 performance last week, feels like eons ago, How confident are you in Devin Singletary? Looks like pretty confident based on your RB16 ranking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just by the way, look at these numbers. Who would have thought, by the way, at the beginning of the season, when we get to week 11,
might be the marquee fantasy game of the day.
There's going to be a ton of fantasy stars in that. I mean,
Between two teams picking in the top 5 last year.
Tank Dell and Nico Collins basically starters as well. Obviously, James Conner, Stroud, and Murray both inside my top 10. Two top six tight ends in this game. And Dalton Schultz
tight ends.
Yeah, exactly. But specifically about Devin Singletary, look, Dameon Pierce has been out the last 2 weeks. He's not going to play again today. And over the last 2 weeks with Pierce out, over 90% of the team's running back touches have gone to Devin Singletary. And shout out Denny Carter. Run funnel defense, what Arizona is. Run funnel defense. Teams facing Arizona averaging 25.6 carries per game. Like literally almost 27 running back carries per game, actually, when you round up. And so, given that the Cardinals also allow the third most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, so you're looking at a massive workload for Singletary, a workload that should be successful in a game where the over/under is 48. Yeah, give me Devin Singletary as a top 16 play. Not only do I have him as a starter, Michael, I might be too low on him.
You're making me rethink my shot for shot, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
You can come back at me.
I think the thing there, too, is that the Texans are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Like, when was the last time the Texans were 5.5-point favorites in
That
this
is
game?
a number there. That is a
Maybe
number
like
there.
3 years since that's happened. So I think that combined with the fact that the Cardinals have a very weak run defense, everything is lined up for Motor Singletary.
Yeah.
All right, we got another viewer question to the hashtag FF pregame. Okay, this font be so small on the screen.
You really,
Please help.
This is amazing.
I have David Montgomery.
I can read this. You want me to?
Please. I didn't get
please
LASIK.
help. I have David Montgomery versus Chicago, Aaron Jones versus the Chargers, Connor at Houston, Murray is my quarterback. HN versus the Raiders. I can only play 3. It's a 12-team league PPR. I need a win this week. I'm a big fan of the show. Thanks in
Christina.
advance. Prayer emojis.
That's a lot of characters. Is X allowing that many characters?
All right, Christina. I like
Thank
it.
you, Christina.
A lot of detail.
A lot of detail, yes.
Okay, so here's what it is. She can play 3 in a PPR. It's Montgomery, Aaron Jones, James Conner, or Devon Achane. For me, James Conner is who I'm benching there.
Yep. So you're benching, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Aaron Jones, this is a really nice matchup against the Chargers, who, again, struggle against pass-catching running backs. So there's that. We've talked about Montgomery, who I have as a top 20 play as well. We like Connor, and we just talked about this as a shootout, but if there's one thing that hasn't gotten going yet because is perhaps the running game. Again, you've got Kyler Murray there as well. Over the last 4 weeks, the Texans are the second best run defense in the NFL. So just in terms of explosiveness, you feel it's Achane versus Connor for me, guys. I don't know if you guys disagree on any of this, but for me, it's Achane. I'd rather the upside of Achane than James Conner.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Well, you got 2 pass-catching running backs, and then you got Montgomery, who could get in the end zone there. So,
yeah, you feel again right to your point. Achane and Aaron Jones are pass catchers, so now you're like Connor and Montgomery, and who's got the better chance at a touchdown? Again, Monty does.
I'll say this, Christina, very strong running back room you've put together.
Yeah, definitely.
Very strong running back room for a 12-team
Exactly.
league. Yeah, nice job.
Yeah, we're a fan of you, Christina. She's a fan of us.
Yeah.
We're a fan of you.
I need to get maybe a stronger script here. You know, I was like, whoa, okay.
Michael's going to show up next week with bifocals.
Moving on to Jets, Bills. A lot on the line for these teams in reality.
Yes.
As well as a lot of relevant fantasy performers. Big story in the league this week was the dismissal of Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator in Buffalo.
Thank God. You know, how listen, he had a top 3 offense.
Yeah.
It wasn't number 1 or number 2.
Yep.
You know,
It's
like why did you, if you're Ken Dorsey, you'd say, hey, Ken Dorsey, why'd you call that play where Gabe Davis would drop the ball in his hands and it would become an interception? Or why'd you call that fumble play for James Cook?
I'm just disappointed.
Why'd you put 12 men on the field?
Or why'd you drop the ball, hand it off to James Cook? Why did it fall out of your quarterback's hands? So when you said thank God, you mean it's a relief for Ken Dorsey to be out of that situation?
Yeah. It was sarcasm. It was
I got
sarcasm.
it. Thank God for him.
I think,
got it. Okay.
I think there are a lot of problems with the Bills, and I think very few of them are Ken Dorsey's fault. And I think
he wasn't throwing those picks.
I think he wasn't throwing those picks. He wasn't fumbling those balls. He wasn't giving up a last-second drive.
Right.
To hey, you know what? Just don't pass interfere on that last drive, and you know what? You guys win the game.
Matthew. Scapegoat.
Scapegoat. Yeah. That's exactly what he was. And so, and like, I don't even. It's not like I have any.
Like, you don't know him. You got a dog in this fight.
Exactly.
You're just on the side of right.
I'm just on the side of right, and just like I'm just watching football, and I'm just like, you know, the issue with the Bills ain't that offense. Like, I mean, like again.
Well, it's the offense, but it's probably more the quarterback.
I'm just.
Yeah.
You should have wore a Ken Dorsey jersey. He's played for the Panthers. I think the
He
Browns.
played University of Miami Ken Dorsey jersey.
Yeah, I wanted to represent for Mandrew's friend of the podcast, a friend of the show. He's been on our show. We feel so terrible that he's out for the
as you
years.
feel about Ken Dorsey and the raw deal that he got.
He got a raw deal.
What's the deal with the Bills moving forward, specifically today against this Jets defense?
Yeah, it's tough. Look, I mean, that's all kind of like. I will say that you're starting the obvious guys, right? So you're starting Josh Allen, you're starting Stephon Diggs. I'm at wide receiver 7. He had over 26 points against the Jets. I believe he's the only wide receiver to score a touchdown against the Jets. Stephon Diggs as well. Dalton Kincaid, I'm as a top 7 play today. He's had at least 15 points in 4 straights. But like honestly, like I'm not feeling James Cook. Certainly not feeling Gabe Davis here. And you know, on the Jets side of the ball, like. I think you have to start Garrett Wilson, who's expected to play, and Breece Hall, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Just obviously you're gonna start Josh Allen. Be wary. In his last 4 games against the Jets, that's the 2 last year, and then 1 in 2021. Last 4 games, he's got 4 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. Pretty much versus this defense that he'll face today. None of those games he's thrown for 250 yards. So this Jets defense is like, they got his number right now. So just be wary of that point.
Yep. I will say, though, I think Allen will play well today, and I think he'll play better than he has against the Jets previously. PFF did this really interesting study where they looked at the fact that scrambling quarterbacks do better against elite defenses than pocket passes. And the reason that is that what the elite defenses do, they perfectly cover plays. And when you can scramble, you can break the perfect coverage. Yeah. And so I think that Allen, he is a better matchup for the Jets defense than his numbers have suggested in the previous matchups. So I think he'll play well today, and I think he's going to want to play well after this week.
All right. Inactives are in, which we will get to momentarily. But first, let's get off these shots. Matthew, start us off.
All right, I got to figure out which one went. All right.
Of course, it's start with a Commander,
yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah. Hail Commanders, hail victory. Brian Robinson finishes as a top 12 running back today. Antonio Gibson officially inactive for this game against the Giants, who've allowed the most rushing touchdowns this year. B-Rob gets in the end zone, finishes at least once, and finishes as a top 12 running back in Week 11.
Cheers.
Okay. There are a few double-digit favorites today in the NFL. I'm going to say that the Dolphins, -14 against the Raiders, the Cowboys, -10.5 against the Panthers, and the 49ers, -12.5 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They all cover. All the big favorites cover. Those are 3 absolute blowouts.
All right.
All right, yes, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he looked bad against the Ravens, but this is not the Ravens, this is the Steelers, who have allowed at least 260 passing yards in 3 straight games, so I'm saying that rookie DTR will outscore Kenny Pickett in fantasy today.
I like it. I just traded for him in Dynasty. Nice job. Nice call. I like that call. You're welcome. To all of you who roster and manage Trevor Lawrence and have been frustrated by Trevor Lawrence's subpar fantasy season, especially given all the dark horse MVP buzz that he got in the preseason. So I am calling, just because I traded him, that's why you're welcome. Traded him yesterday.
So he's going to go off now.
He's going to go off.
Right.
A 20-plus point fantasy day, his first of the season for Trevor Lawrence against the Titans.
All right. Fair enough.
Matthew.
Devontae Smith goes for the fantasy equivalent of 100 yards and a touchdown. So, look, in the 5 games that Dallas Goedert missed last year, a 27% target share for Devontae Smith. They're going to have to score to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. Devontae Smith, 100 yards and a touchdown to the fantasy equivalent. Let's go.
Okay. I don't think anyone in America watched Packers against Rams when Brett Rippon was at quarterback, or Packers against Steelers, but if you did, if you have that level of commitment to this league, you'll know that Jordan Love has kind of turned the corner a little bit. He is playing better the past 2 weeks. Things have slowed down for him. He's playing in rhythm. So I think against a very soft Chargers defense, he outduels Justin Herbert at home and wins as a 3-point underdog.
All right. I don't think the Giants are going to win as underdogs against the Commanders, but Saquon Barkley, who has had 100 scrimmage yards in 3 of his last 4 games, will get 100 total yards today and a touchdown in a 3rd straight game of averaging at least 5 yards a carry with Tommy DeVito at quarterback against these Commanders, but they still going to lose, though.
We talked a lot about the Bears-Lions. We didn't mention your ride or die. I'm on Ross St. Brown. I'm going to go with a guy that I'm starting in 2 leagues, proudly. Sam Laporta hadn't had a big yardage game since earlier in the season. Give me 75-plus yards and a touchdown against the defense, allowing more fantasy points than anybody to the tight end position. That's
I like
Chicago
that.
Bears.
All right. I like that.
You're up, Matthew.
All right. I'm going to put on my best Jay Croucher right now. And I think while the big favorites may cover, I think this is actually today is a big road underdog day. I believe the Jets, the Giants, the Cardinals, the Titans, the Bears, and the Steelers all cover as road underdogs today. Again,
Jets, Giants, Cardinals, Titans, Bears, and Steelers.
Jets already beat the Bills, and I don't think they're more than a touchdown worse than Buffalo. Giants always play Commanders tough. That's up to 9.5 or 8.5, whatever. Again, I don't think they beat them by that much. I've already said Texans. I don't think Sage Stroud is that much better than Kyler Murray. Titans are playing tough. Like they're like a touchdown underdog here. Titans always play tough under Vrabel. We talked about Chicago. We've talked about this game. Justin Fields, his first game back.
Cleveland
I think they make it a
game.
Quarterback. And, Cleveland with a rookie quarterback. Mike Tomlin. They play close, even if it was Deshaun Watson. Now you got DTR. I get that they're not the Ravens defense, but Steelers defense pretty good. DTR against TJ Watt and company. Anyway, I think they all cover as road underdogs. Throw a buck down on all that parlay, and then thank me when it cashes.
Be proud of that, right, JJ? Stay with that Cleveland Steelers game.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going head-to-head with you on one of these, and that's the Cleveland Browns. I think Jerome Ford goes over 57.5 rushing yards, and the Browns beat the Steelers. I think DTR, the fact he's had a full week of practice, I believe what he did in the preseason was a really good indication, and I just don't trust Kenny Pickett going up against Myles Garrett and co. So give me Jerome Ford over after he had 100-plus yards against the Ravens, and DTR gets a win.
All right. By the way, Browns are 2-point favorites.
Yeah, we can both win.
We can both win. We can both win.
Steelers aren't afraid of a 2-point
Browns with it. I'm saying that all I'm saying is the Steelers cover.
Yeah,
and I've seen it. You know, it was at 2.5. It's moved, and so anyway, yes.
Everybody
I think he covers.
Lawrence,
all right, Jay, you said the Packers are going to win as an underdog. I like the Cardinals to win as an underdog today as well. And in that win, both Trey McBride and Marquise Brown will both score a touchdown. Houston's given up a touchdown to a tight end in 2 of their last 3 games. We just saw Tyler Boyd go for over 115 receiving yards against this Texans defense. So pour it up for Hollywood Brown and Trey McBride.
All right. I'm going back to this game that we seem to love today, and that's Texans-Cardinals. Matthew, you made a compelling case about Devin Singletary and this run game of the Houston Texans going off against the run funnel that is the Arizona Cardinals defense. But I'm going to ride this C.J. Stroud train, all right? No Noah Brown. He's among the inactives as expected. C.J. Stroud still goes off 400 yards again, 2+ passing touchdowns, and 0 picks. That MVP campaign, that MVP case, that MVP resume gets even stronger with another statistically dominant performance for Coleridge Stroud.
All right.
Yes. All right.
I'm rooting for that one.
I'm telling you, what a revelation he has been. All right, we're gonna react to more of the inactives, get into some rankings
roll
as well.
in. Yep.
There's David Montgomery. He heard y'all talking about all that Jahmyr Gibbs stuff. You know, one of the first guys out.
He will face his former team for the first time today and tells me he's excited and just hoping for a good game. #1Pride. Oh, yeah. Monty's getting to the end zone against the Bears. They disrespected him last offseason.
See what I'm saying? You forgot that revenge game narrative.
Exactly.
You forgot that part.
They're all going off.
All that Jahmyr Gibbs stuff. All right, both Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane up and ready to eat against the Raiders. As mentioned, Dameon Pierce out, fire up Devin Singletary, Khalil Herbert off IR. Deontay Foreman active, came in questionable. So good luck with that Bears backfield. Keenan Allen's active, Nico Collins is active, which is great news because Noah Brown is out. Zay Jones is up, so is Pat Freiermuth off IR. Antonio Gibson is out as expected for the Commanders. That bodes well for Matthew Berry's top 12 fantasy day projection for Brian Robinson. And in terms of the late games, remember Justin Jefferson. You probably already noticed if you're a Justin Jefferson manager, you've probably been holding prayer vigils, so you know that Justin Jefferson has not been activated off IR. Alexander Mattison, though, is trending toward playing, even though he's been in concussion protocol. Garrett Wilson and Tyler Lockett looking like they're going to be up for late games as well. All right, you ready to go deep?
Let's do it.
Starting with the running back position.
I'm tweeting.
What you tweeting?
I'm tweeting. I'm just tweeting. Yeah, just some inactives and stuff like that. Yeah, nothing exciting.
Yeah, real quick, take a peek at that list, and anybody jump out to you from guys available in over 50% of Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're desperate for somebody today, I think Darrell Henderson's the most obvious. We don't expect Kyron Williams isn't eligible to come back until next week.
Yep.
It should be a split between Henderson and Royce Freeman today against the Seahawks. And Seattle recently has really struggled against the run. They were really good early in the year, but over the last 4 weeks, no team in the NFL has allowed more rushing yards per game than the Seattle Seahawks. Stafford back. That offense should be out there as well. So I think he's kind of interesting as well. Charbonnet has started to play more. He hasn't done much with it, but he's played more snaps actually than Ken Walker last couple of weeks. So those two guys in that particular league as well. And you know, if I was in a deep league, Ty Chandler, I think, even though Madison's going to play, like Ty Chandler was splitting work for the 3 quarters that they were there together.
Yeah.
Denver has struggled somewhat against the run. They're 25th against the run over the last 4 weeks. So Ty Chandler, that would, you know, and we talk about Tajay Spears every single week.
Speaking of deep leagues, Rico Dowdle, who's active this week, he's the Cowboys running back that does score touchdowns. Went 12 carries for 79 yards last week.
All right, let's move on to the wide receiver spot. Jaden Reed continues to show out. You mentioned Rondell Moore. We had a question about Quentin Johnston. Robert Woods looking like he'll play more 3-wide sets with no Noah Brown. The guy I'm curious about, man, is Jahan Dotson. Like, the definition of boom or bust. Does he boom today against the Giants? Because I'm debating whether or not to start him. I'm actually kind of desperate.
Obviously, I mean, you know, tell me you're desperate without telling me you're desperate. Hey, I'm thinking about Jahan Dotson today. I'm at wide receiver 44. I'm more interested actually in Rondell Moore, who, as we talked about, first game with Kyler, got 8 targets. I have him slightly higher than Dotson. I will say that Dotson has traditionally done okay against the Giants. It's not a defense that scares you. Sam Howell is throwing like crazy, and so I do think Dotson, who started to show some signs of life recently.
And Curtis Samuel came
but Samuel didn't do much last week.
It's like it's like it don't even matter what Curtis Samuel does. If he's active, Jahan Dotson is active but not active. That's what
getting cardio out there.
I think Rondell Moore is the interesting one, just because with Kyler back, that's a completely new ecosystem of an offense. Everything that you thought that you knew about the Cardinals offense, just rip it up because Kyler Murray comes in. I don't know why people don't really respect Kyler Murray as a quarterback. Like, Kyler Murray is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL easily. This time 2 years ago, he was close to MVP favorite, and the Cardinals were a 1 seed. He's really freaking good. And Rondell Moore, he's got a rapport with him, and as you mentioned, the 8 targets last week. Like, I think he's going to be a thing going forward.
The other one I'll mention, just deeper leagues, guys that I prefer. How about Jaden Reed, who's had at least 80 yards in 2 of the past 3 games? We talked about Jay talking earlier about the improvement of Jordan Love. Think about the Chargers. They really struggle against the slot, which is where Reed plays the majority of his snaps here. Again, this is super deep league, but like if you were desperate, sounds like you are, I actually think Jaden Reed is kind of interesting today.
All right, keep those questions coming to the hashtag FF Pregame. And here's one: Kenneth Walker or Garrett Wilson from Fantasy Girl 87.
Okay. I bet you she gets a bunch of interesting bots in her timeline with that name.
And no avatar.
Yeah, no avatar, and her handle
Tread carefully.
is Fantasy Girl 87.
Rein it in.
Just low key.
I just know the bots I get in my feed, so
Yeah.
But I'll just say, take a stroll through my mentions sometime. It's a whole thing.
Probably a minefield.
Lot going on there. For me, it's Kenneth Walker.
Yes.
Again, give me the guy that doesn't have Zach Wilson thrown to him. I don't want to pile on Zach Wilson again.
I
You just did. You could have just said, give me Kenneth Walker and left it at that. You had to give a straight to Zach Wilson. So, yes, you want to pile on to Zach Wilson.
Garrett's injured as well. Garrett's playing hurt. He's playing hurt,
and just again, it's not all Zach Wilson's fault, but he has struggled. But certainly, at least some of it is. And
the game losing
They're out here
interception
having
was
team
entirely
meetings,
on him.
man. Like, give me the guy that ain't having team meetings. How about that?
The answer's Ken Walker. We'll just leave it at that. The answer's Ken Walker.
All right, speaking of quarterbacks, we'll go to quarterbacks and tight ends. Jay, if you want to keep beating that drum about Jordan Love, and for that matter, Luke Musgrave is trusted tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke Musgrave as well. He's kind of coming along. We've got all these young tight ends. We didn't really know who would emerge. Dalton Kincaid has clearly been the big name. Not really happening for Michael Mayer, but Luke Musgrave has been getting in the end zone. He's establishing a rapport with Jordan Love, who I think is becoming more viable too. It hasn't really shown up in the stats yet, but he just looks more comfortable out there, and now he gets a favorable matchup against the Chargers. The Chargers, when they played the Lions last week, it was a miracle whenever the Chargers were able to get off the field because they only punted in the game once. So I think Jordan Love can have a good day today.
Hey, low-key, Lawrence, how you feel about Donald Parham against Green Bay filling in for Gerald Everett?
I mean, look, in a game that could potentially be a shootout, Gerald Everett is out. When both of these guys play, like, you're not starting either one of them. But when one of them is out, you take a long shot on the guy that's in today. That's Donald Parham against Green Bay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that if you are looking for a tight end.
Second on the Chargers in receiving touchdowns.
Right, loves him in the red zone. All right, Lawrence, since you completing, how many is this? 75%. What's your completion percentage in proper shot?
Well,
Like
3 out of the last 5 I missed last week.
Oh, okay.
So we got
to. That means you 50%.
I got to make sure I don't get to 50%. I'm going to go back to my right hand. I'm going to go back to the right arm. The MVP.
Yeah, put some pressure on
I
him.
didn't know you were ambidextrous with it.
I was going lefty the past 2 weeks. I went 50% lefty. I'm going to go back to the MVP righty, and there we go right there.
Damn. I don't like to follow
I don't,
that.
But I don't like it when somebody
So it's either
so
I go first or last.
So confident he just nailed it with velocity
I'm standing up because I keep throwing. I hate throwing from the
It's
chair.
got nothing to do with that, Matthew.
Well,
It's entirely to do with your physiology.
Let's go. All right.
Wait,
Look at it.
Celebrate to interception.
I was aiming for a hole.
Yes, they're not
I was aiming for a hole and I got it in the hole.
It's okay. You just really, Matthew?
Yeah, that's right.
Matthew?
Me, Matt.
Look, I'm more happier for you
I want
than
some
me.
distance. I want some distance.
Yeah,
with it.
because it's hard to
I'm going
score.
off
It's
camera
harder
with
to score at the goal line.
Wow.
You got
Hey,
close,
so look.
though. You got close.
Still got my eye.
The moral of the story here is get a
Michael
little
Smith.
distance.
Yeah.
And everyone's more accurate with
I
a
can't
little
have
more
Lawrence
distance.
telling me morals of the story. I can't have it.
The way Lawrence just like, I'm about to use my right hand. He's like, boom. Like, man, we're about to pick a new game.
Lawrence played college ball.
We are in a bar, and I'm definitely a bar quarterback. In college, though, I was nothing close to a quarterback. Don't put me as a real quarterback, but a bar quarterback.
But you played college ball.
chat.
My point is, you played football at a higher level than the three of us.
I think anybody watching this show would have assumed that you're the best athlete. So that's not a surprise.
I've actually tried to get
Why would you
open
say
against
that?
Lawrence before. It didn't work out great.
No,
It's like Sauce Gardner against Zach Wilson.
It ain't him.
wide receiver.
If a damn sure ain't me. So between the two of y'all, Lawrence, I'm picking my man from the A. All right,
Yeah.
and his athletic
Appreciate
ability.
you.
All right, proper shot.
You'd be surprised at how quick Jay is. When he was escaping kangaroos as a young man, they just like, 100%.
Is that xenophobic?
That's
No,
two.
it's okay. It's approved. It's approved.
That's two. First you had Zach Wilson. Now
Wait a
that's
second.
two dams in
Wait a
like the
second.
past 2 minutes.
Wait a minute. Could you say when he was escaping kangaroos? Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
It's a
when
strange
he's growing up in
comment.
Australia.
It's a strange comment.
Young man.
That feels wildly inappropriate. And I feel worse for laughing about it.
Hang on. Tell me what statement is wrong, Michael. Tell me what statement is wrong.
I just wanted to
Jay
talk
Croucher grew up in Australia. Kangaroos are indigenous to Australia.
Yeah, they are.
All right, so
Technically
what's
According to the
like,
Wikipedia
like
page.
if he was a young boy, like
man.
wild kangaroos, from what I understand, and I've never been to Australia. My only knowledge of Australia is the movie Kangaroo Jack, and so from what I understand, kangaroos run this.
Didn't you write Crocodile Dundee? You literally wrote Crocodile Dundee.
Yes, but I didn't know research. I didn't know research. It was just a bunch of knife jokes.
I actually thought about Crocodile Dundee once you said kangaroos.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
with me
and by the way,
running.
as the co-author of Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, by far the least successful of the franchise, the least successful movie of the franchise, although it still was profitable. Thank you very much. And not our fault we got into a lawsuit with Paul Hogan, whole story. I'm dead serious. They tried to sue us. It's the whole thing. Listen to how did this get made, the Crocodile Dundee episode of How Did This Get Made. Paul Scherer got all the answers out of me. But what I will tell you is that I feel like I am an authority on Australia as the co-author. Right. So yes, I can make kangaroo. I can make kangaroo dodging jokes.
Okay, all right, okay, fair enough. Yeah. And listen, I don't know if it just felt weird. Okay, so I don't mean to make it weird. It just
That's all right.
maybe I'm a little.
I've always been more quick than fast as well. I'm like James Cook. I don't really have that burst, but I've got the quickness.
Right, exactly. He's shifty. Yeah, exactly. In the open field, he's hard to tackle.
Yes, exactly. Like the anti-Latavius Murray.
Yeah. You can't get it. You can't. He likes because he moves his shoulders a lot. Jay does.
The goal line.
Hard to get like a a direct
Matthew,
hit on him.
Go back to your storyline, your top storyline off the top.
Last thing here, we'll move on.
No, we don't have to move on.
But I just I just. By the way, if it was like if I said something wrong, it was cancelable.
Right.
Like let's say I did say something.
I apologize to anybody I may have offended.
Right. It was one of those things. It's like I'm taking some time for reflection.
You're gonna have to send that tweet.
Right, exactly.
You're gonna have to send that paragraph.
The notes app, right? I got to write on the notes app. Right. Turn off the comments. If I had to do one of those
Turn
things,
off the comments.
right? Exactly.
It's just gonna be a whole bunch of quote tweets on there.
I mean, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. There's somebody in our industry that literally had to do this like within the last 2 days. Had to put out.
You see, you never want to be in that position to where you have to do that.
Where you have to turn off the comments and and make a post.
Because the comments about to be lit.
But my point is, Michael, that if I had said something that was that over the line, that all of a sudden I'm in the you being like, whoa, you can't just say, you just let me take the spotlight.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Did you guys just hear what Matthew said? I just want to make sure.
Right.
Just understand.
Here, this guy.
Hey, cancel culture. I don't know if you missed that.
It wasn't us.
I just want to make
He
sure.
put the whole back signal on.
Exactly.
Anybody offended by this harmless, innocuous kangaroo comment?
Right.
PC police over here.
Exactly. Ignore all the Australian jokes. And then somebody's going through it all, because I've made nothing but Australian jokes with Jake for like a year and a half.
Gotcha.
And then somebody goes through and finds them all. Old tweets. It's a whole thing. All I know is, listen, Jay and Lawrence, let this be a lesson to you. Never be in a foxhole with this one. You understand what I'm talking about?
Deflect. Let's not deflect off your inappropriate xenophobic stereotypes just now. Okay.
Listen, someone proved to me that kangaroos don't run wild.
Right. You're probably right. I'm sure Jay has a story about avoiding a kangaroo.
I was
that he told you one night in Buffalo. He told you that story.
The
story with Tony Pollard has been awful, per your storyline, to start the show. Jay.
I was told Kangaroo Jack was a documentary. I'm leaving it there.
By the way, this is Proper Shot, by the way.
Shit. Yeah, we should.
Jay, Tony Pollard's rushing yards over under 65 and a half.
All right, fast.
DraftKings going to love this segment. Go in the over here. He goes over to that. Got nothing.
Lawrence, Justin Fields passing yards over under 200 and a half.
Jay mentioned the Lions defense earlier. I'm going to go over here. And Justin Fields, 228 passing yards in his 5 full games as a starter. Give me the over here.
Matthew, Tank Dell's receiving yards over under 59 and a half.
Yeah, I'm going over. He's Tank Dell. He's a thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Hashtag analysis. That's good.
No Noah Brown here as well. Again, like Arizona struggles defensively.
Jay, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's passing yards over under 166 and a half.
Over. This is too low for a starting quarterback in decent weather against the Steelers defense that has not been great lately and doesn't have Minka Fitzpatrick.
Lawrence, Tyreek Hill's receiving yards over under 92 and a half.
Raiders' 8th best passing defense, and Tyreek hasn't hit this 2 out of his last 3 games, but it's Tyreek Hill. I'm going over.
Matthew, your main man Terry McLaurin over under 59.5 receiving yards.
I'm going over. At least 60 receiving yards for the past 5 games. First game against the Giants this year, he had 6 for 90. So, yeah, give me the over on 59.5 for Scary Terry.
Jay, Derrick Henry's rushing yards, over under 54.5.
I'm shocked by this line, Michael. 54.5. It's Derrick Henry. He's second in the league in rushing. Now, I understand the Jags have a good run defense, but this should be 15 yards higher. He's averaging 16 per game. 69 per game.
Lawrence, Aaron Jones rushing yards, over under 53.5.
I'm not shocked about this. He's went over 45 once this season, and he took 20 carries to do that. Outside of Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, the Chargers haven't allowed a 50-yard rusher since week 4. Aaron Jones will do it through the receiving game. I'm going under here.
Matthew, Josh Allen's passing yards, over under 241.5.
I'm going over. He's had at least 242 passing yards. 3 of the past 4 games he went over this number the first time he played the Jets. No Ken Dorsey there. Like, because they got so much criticism for the Ken Dorsey firing, I do think they will make a point to, really feature Josh Allen, and he'll have a big game here against the Jets. Give me the over on 241.5.
Jay, George Kittle's receiving yards, over under 44.5.
Going under is just a different equation with Deebo Samuel back in town. I don't think they're going to need to throw in the second half either, the Niners.
Lawrence, Matthew Stafford is back. His passing yards, over under 255.5.
This is tough for me because he did this easily against the Seahawks, but that was in week 1. He hasn't hit this number in his last 4 games, nor has he thrown for 30 passing attempts in his last 3. Seattle's allowed this number once in their last 6 games. That defense has gotten better. I'm going to go under.
All right, Matthew, my guy Josh Dobbs, more from him in a moment. Passing yards, over under 219.
I don't think you're allowed to call him your guy. No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand he's your
just
main
my
man.
guy.
Right.
Not
No.
your guy,
Because these guys will talk. I talked about him in the preseason when he got traded. That I've always rooted for him. I've known him for a long time.
No,
but I know
definitely
you
did.
haven't. We're going to talk with him later, and I know you're talking to him tonight on Football Night in America. I can't wait to see that interview. But I'm going to take the under on his passing yards prop here. Look. It's 219.5. He's averaged 213 passing yards in his 2 starts against Minnesota. Broncos are a top 10 pass defense over the last 4 weeks. This game's in Denver. No Justin Jefferson tonight. I love Josh Dobbs, and I think they cover. But, I'm taking the under on this one.
All right. Don't forget, on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same game parlay every day. Download the app and use the promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Tyreek Hill coming for that crown.
Hit that over.
Single-season receiving yards.
Yeah.
Showing off a little bit.
Yeah, catching balls behind his back. It's just come on, just stop.
It's unfair.
Right. I don't know what the line is off the top of my head, but I'm taking the over.
Well, Lawrence just did. much is your head spinning right now?
I will say it's much less than it was about a week ago. A week ago, just coming into town and all the little things, like just trying to figure out logistics of moving, getting traded, all those emotions, and then also, meeting a new team, new offense, and then figuring out, all right, are you playing this weekend? What's going to happen with the situation? There's a lot going on. But to have a week under me, to get settled, to go through a full week of preparation, go out and play good football on Sunday, man, I'm really getting my footing. And so head spinning a little less now than it was, but it's a process. And, I'm just embracing every second of it.
Check out more of my conversation with Minnesota Vikings QB Josh Dobbs tonight on Football Night in America, starring Matthew Berry ahead of Vikings Broncos on Sunday Night Football on NBC. The full conversation is available on the NFL on NBC YouTube page. And one of the reasons I love
half of our audience is watching right now on the. So just
there you go. Just stay here
after the game. Just check it out. It's good stuff. He's such a great interview. Was that their first time interviewing him?
That was my first time interviewing him. Best story in the NFL for my money.
Yes.
Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Everybody swears by Josh Dobbs, the person. He's got a great personal story. Get you a guy that could do both. Get you a guy that could be an NFL quarterback and literally a rocket scientist.
Right.
But I would say more than anything.
He's the anti-Carson Wentz.
Give me the thing I love about him more than anything, beyond the fact that he just found a great situation for himself. With Kevin O'Connell, who told me afterward, is like, you know what? I told him I don't care about what happened in these other places. And I think part of it was Kevin O'Connell's history as a quarterback himself. It's like, forget about what the book that people have written on you. I'm going to play to your strengths and put you in the best position to succeed. But I think there's just a good life story here with Josh Dobbs. Mm-hmm. It's like he's been everywhere. Journeyman doesn't begin to describe his career situation, bouncing from team to team. All it takes is for you to land in that one spot in your life, whatever career you're in. That one spot where somebody believes in you, you get an opportunity, and you seize it and run with it. He stayed ready, so you have to get ready, Lawrence.
And speaking of career, now that he's with the Vikings, they sitting at 6-4 right now. He has a chance in his career to perhaps be the Vikings quarterback going forward. Like you never know.
They want to move on from Kirk.
Yeah, he's got enough games to play, and let's see what happens. But obviously, all of us here at this desk and everybody else is rooting for that young man.
He's hard not to root for. He is
hard not to root for him. And I'll just say this. I think Comeback Player of the Year has to be Damar Hamlin. I don't know how he doesn't win that award. But if they make the playoffs, Josh Dobbs is going to make it a conversation. That's all I'm going to just because narrative and it's such a good story, and it's been it's been a long time since the Hamlin thing happened. Like, I think Hamlin will still win, but they'll talk
Yeah, he should probably come second. It's just the weird thing is, what is he coming back from? He's arriving for the first time now, type of thing. I mean, it's such a strange award, but I agree. He is a phenomenon at the moment.
It's an unbelievable story.
A must-watch game tonight.
Yeah, can't wait to see it tonight.
Quick question before we get into your rankings and find out where you have Josh Dobbs. Jess Dabs, thanks for watching on YouTube. Full PPR. Who does he flex? Who do they flex? Hollywood Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, Trey McBride, or Derrick Henry, and you are welcome, Jess Dabs.
I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown here. It's. I assume I was thinking that was Hunter Henry for a second. That's Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Okay.
At
that point, then I think it's Derrick Henry. I just, when I saw McBride and then I went to Henry, I thought I was in tight end mode, and then they're in a bye this week.
Synapses of Barry's brain.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still in kangaroo mode, calling PR like Michael Smith threw me under the bus. What I got to do?
HR and PR.
Exactly. Derrick Henry. I think just in terms of workload here. My next guy would be Hollywood Brown after that, then Pacheco, then McBride. Yeah. I'm just nervous about Pacheco, who hasn't been great, and he's going against he's going against Philadelphia, which has been an elite run defense over the last month. Yeah. So, I think just workload with Derrick Henry. I get it's a tough matchup, but to your point, who's got the best chance at a touchdown of those guys? It's Derrick Henry. Yep.
Great chance to answer your question if you hit us with the hashtag #FFPregame. All right, into the rankings we go. I've already told you how much I'm loving C.J. Stroud this week, although it is against a run-funnel defense in Arizona, Matthew.
That is true. I just want to say run funnel. It is run funnel, exactly. But they also, in addition to being a run funnel, they also allow the second highest completion rate on deep passes. Guess what your guy C.J. Stroud is? Top 4 in the NFL in both completions and attempts on deep passes. Nico Collins is back. Tank Dell's still there, as you know. They're going to take some shots. And guess this. Quarterbacks that have attempted at least 30 passes against Arizona, averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. We've talked about this. I would be nervous about C.J. Stroud if it were Clayton Tune under center. I'm just like, they're going to be up. They're not going to need to. But because I expect Kyler Murray, a fully healthy Kyler Murray with Connor, with Hollywood Brown, with all these guys, I think he's going to keep it close. Again, the over-under is 48.
It's a Sunday ticket game.
It is a fun game. It is going to be a fun game. So, yeah, I have C.J. Stroud as a top 4 play today.
Lawrence, tell me more about about Josh Allen with this. We assume is going to be a different approach on offense.
Yeah.
No Ken Dorsey.
And I think you actually brought up a good point, Matthew.
Don't sound surprised.
Not
every once in a while.
You can tell, right? You can tell, right?
Take the surprise out
like,
your
whoa,
face.
Matthew, you did bring up a good point, Matthew.
I was sitting here and it sort of hit me like, damn, okay. That one actually makes sense.
About them trying to, now that Ken Dorsey is gone, like, let's see what we can do without Ken Dorsey. But on the other end, again, I just say be wary because the New York Jets defense, who's top 5 in allowing fantasy points to quarterbacks, they don't care about none of that. They don't care about the offensive coordinator and what they got going on. What they do care about is that they've only allowed 2 players this whole season to hit over 250 passing yards, and amongst those that did not was Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So from the other good point, one of you said it about Josh. I think it was Jay about him, the rushing ability. You can see him, get some fantasy points that way more so, especially since he has 7 rushing touchdowns this season.
I'm going to make a point on Josh Allen before we get to Dak Prescott with you, Jay. And this is not based on any inside information. It's just a hunch.
Okay.
You scapegoated Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
You already moved on from Leslie Frazier on defense. Pressures ratcheting up in Buffalo for Sean McDermott. Defensive coach, I wouldn't be surprised to see him neuter Josh Allen. Like, you ain't about to lose me my job.
Imagine
turning
that.
the ball over. Like, we running the ball. Like, I would not be surprised to see this be a James Cook and Latavius Murray and, like, taking the air out the ball. I don't give a damn how frustrated Stephon Diggs is. We are going to be a running football team, says the defensive coordinator-minded head coach in Sean McDermott. Wouldn't be surprised to see a whole lot of running, or even design runs for Josh Allen.
And I think that would play into the Jets' hands, to be honest. If they did go that route, that's the kind of game that the Jets want to play.
I'm kind of waiting for the day when the Jets' defense just finally kind of breaks because they have so much responsibility on their shoulders every single week. Zach Wilson just lost them. Well, I mean, the offense lost them a game against the Raiders they really should have won. And is there just going to be a day when all of a sudden they just get blown out and they just lose by 25? And Josh Allen can do that.
Team meeting?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. You can never predict when that is going to happen, but I just wouldn't be shocked as well because Josh Allen's good enough to do that.
Yeah. Yep. I feel that pressure on this show all the time. I got to carry everything. I got 3 Zach Wilson.
So what do you?
Just
CJ Uzomah and Billy Turner.
All right. Meanwhile,
everything's
great from a man, Dak Prescott. That's my quarterback. I was talking about him chasing history, trying to go for a 4th straight game with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yes. Me and Matthew, have established ourselves as Dak men. You've been on the other side of the Dak fence since day one, unfortunately.
I own it.
Look,
he's made me look dumb the last couple of weeks, no doubt.
Mike McCarthy, the Cowboys are going to win this game barring catastrophe. Mike McCarthy can choose the way that he wants to win it. Do you want to keep throwing with Dak and have that efficiency, or do you want to go and get Tony Pollard right and get him the ball? Because this is the best opportunity you're going to have all season. It's the worst rushing defense in the NFL in Carolina. They're maybe the worst team in the NFL alongside the Tommy DeVito New York Giants. So I think they will go out of their way to establish the run. At the same time, he's still starting Dak Prescott, but I just wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't have the 300 yards, 4 touchdowns again.
Maybe he runs 1 or 2 in. Who knows? Maybe he gets a quarterback sneak just to mess with you about Tony Pollard. Michael Thomas, what's up? Full PPR flex spot. Adam Thielen, Puka Nacua, Devon Achane, or Trey McBride.
This is a tough one. I'm tempted by Achane. I don't want Thielen, even though Thielen's been great, but he's struggled the last couple of weeks there as well. So, but the Cowboys, negative. The positives are negative game script and just he's the only viable guy, but also the Cowboys could just completely blow them out.
On that, there are a couple of negative game scripts. Yes, Bryce Young will be in a negative game script. Yes, Aiden O'Connell will be in a negative game script. But you still have to pass for first downs to stay on the field. And I just don't think they're going to have the ball much because they're going to be going 3 and out so much.
I'm going to go with Devon Achane. I'm going with Devon Achane. I love the matchup. I think he's also got the best chance at a touchdown. Again, I kind of like Nacua today. Again, Thielen, but those are guys that have been hot recently. And I'm sorry, they've been hot earlier in the season. We haven't seen it yet from recently from Nacua because he's been out. And Thielen, the last couple games have been down. I'm going with Devon Achane. I'm calling my shot there. You guys, anyone you think?
I'll take Achane.
I mean, if you wanted to go Puka.
76-yard touchdown run in the first quarter,
it's hard to sit
you'd be good to go.
It's hard to sit a dude averaging 12 yards a carry.
Yeah, I think if you want floor, you take Nacua, and I think if you want ceiling, you take Achane.
All right. Moving on a little deeper in your quarterback rankings, and let's talk about Mr. Jared Goff. We talked about Justin Fields and his return. You got Justin Fields at QB 13. Your QB 11 is Jared Goff.
Jared Goff loves playing in a dome. He loves playing on turf. He loves playing at home. He's averaging over 20 points per game. He loves life right now, by the way. Everything's turning up. Goff. He's averaging over 20 points a game when he's at home this year. Bears allowed touchdown passes at the third highest rate this season. My ride or die, Amon-Ra St. Brown, has been awesome. I know you love Sam Laporta today.
I do.
They've got Gibbs and Montgomery, and we've talked about this again. Bears are literally the best run defense in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. It may not matter that much, but the way you attack Chicago is through the air. That's what I expect them to do. So, yeah, give me Jared Goff as a top 12 play today.
Yeah, and on that flip side, same game, Justin Fields, talked about him a little bit earlier. The Lions, they allow the 10th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. In 2 of their last 3 games, they've given up at least 320 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. We saw what Fields did in his last few games before the injury. The quarterback that didn't have that 320 and 3 touchdowns was Jimmy G's last game. So we'll throw that out right there. So you got Justin Fields at 13. I got him at 10. But because of how the Lions defense has been playing lately, don't be shocked if Fields is like right back there in the top 5 or 6 guys.
And sandwiched between Goff and Fields on Matthew's rankings is my guy, Josh Dobbs.
Yep, he goes by different names. Some call him the Pastronaut. I call him Dobby, and I think that Dobby will have a great game today.
I wish you had texted Michael and asked him to ask. Did you ask him during your interview, your 40-minute interview with him, about nicknames or anything like that?
I asked him about the Pastronaut, not Dobby.
Okay.
That would have been great.
I did ask him about
Only
the
works on the
Pastronaut.
voice, though.
What was
He
his,
likes it. No,
he likes Pastronaut.
Yeah, he likes it quite a bit because
Yeah.
he definitely takes pride in being somebody who's been successful in both academically and athletically.
I'll text
the other one, Rocket.
Again,
I think Rocket. He's had Rocket Man.
Right.
That one, obviously.
That's not as good as the Pastronaut.
Pastronaut's
good.
Yeah.
But when you think about that. Josh Dobbs has been really successful athletically and academically. Again, he's the anti-Matthew Berry. I'm 0 for 2 there. Like, I'm not that bright. We all know that. Right, and obviously, I barely got a ball in there over there, so.
What do you mean? You hit one today.
I hit one
hey,
today.
Man, be proud.
I did.
You hit no more than Tommy DeVito.
One of the reasons I've never been to Australia is I can't outrun a kangaroo. Do you understand that, Lawrence? Like, I would be
devoured.
Fair enough.
I would be down. I'd be punched out.
But are you quick though? You got the juke moves.
No,
you ain't got,
no,
damn,
I'm
man.
I literally have no redeeming qualities.
But quickly, did you ever make your point on Josh?
I didn't, but I can make it quickly. Look, Josh Dobbs, I think he's just evidence that we have no idea about quarterbacks. We never know who is going to be good or not. And now Dobbs, for the first time,
they all hurt.
This is his best coaching situation, his best offensive line, his best set of weapons, even without Justin Jefferson, I'd say, because of how TJ Hawkinson is playing.
Gosh.
To me, the key with Dobbs is the connection that he has with Hawkinson.
Yes,
that touchdown pass that went over the linebacker before the safety, that's a next level Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk type of throw. So I think that combined with his rushing ability, he's a locked-in starting quarterback.
And we've talked about this some during the week, and I don't know if this came up in your interview with Dobbs, but Dobbs and Hawkinson are friends off the field.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't just he just showed up in Minnesota and like, hey, nice to meet you. They worked out this summer. They worked out this summer in Tennessee. So so there was already a built-in connection between Dobbs and Hawkinson before he gets to Minnesota, and you've already seen that the first 2 games where he's been a big target for.
I mean, for a dude that it's giving me kind of like Derek Anderson vibes. Yeah. Like this guy, may just win you your league this year because he's found money. And just imagine when he gets comfortable, what he starts to produce. Iman on a mission. Nice job. Needs a tight end and 2 flex for full PPR. Choices are Debo, Waddle, Laporta, Kincaid, and McBride. Tight end and 2 flexes, Matthew, in full PPR.
I think your 2 flexes are your first 2 guys, Debo and Waddle. I mean, I don't know how you bench either of those guys right now. And I'll also tell you that I don't think Again, I don't think he can screw it up with tight end. Honestly,
trade one of those.
Trade one of those guys because you got 3 top 7 guys here. I'll just listen. I have McBride at 4. I have Laporta at 5. I have Dalton Kincaid at 7. So I really think it's between Laporta and McBride. I'm going to go with McBride just because it's he's who I have higher ranked, and it's the higher. Chicago, that should be a shootout too, but. There's a chance that there's like a.
You should take a sip of water.
Yeah, I mean.
Go ahead. Just take your time.
Whatever.
Live TV.
I'm talking
You've been talking. You're allowed. You've been talking for an hour and 19 minutes. Go ahead and gather yourself. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Trey McBride.
Yeah.
There you go. That's my answer.
That's all you got? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, again, I have McBride at 4. I have Laporta at 5. It does. I mean, and Kincaid at 7. I think both guys, McBride and Laporta, are in shootout type situations, good game script environment. But Bears are underdogs. In theory, you have to nitpick at this level, right?
Yeah.
So Lions are almost a touchdown favorite. Actually, line's 8 now? Is it up to 8?
-8.
So the Lions are 8-point favorites. They may not have to throw as much in the second half, whereas the Cardinals are 5.5-point underdogs. In theory, they're throwing the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
that's an embarrassment of riches at tight end.
It is an embarrassment of riches. I don't think you can screw it up. I think they all have good games today, but you asked me to pick one, I'm picking McBride.
All right, we have crushed the quarterback rankings. Let's get into the running backs. Remember that trade I referenced earlier, Matthew, when I said I traded Trevor Lawrence? I traded him for a good-looking 24 first-round pick, the second worst team in the league. And I also got Javonte Williams in that trade. So I was saying that to ask you to tell me something good about Javonte Williams.
It depends on if you better not screw up that pick. But yeah, assuming you don't, that's a pretty good trade for you. Although I'm still bullish on Lawrence's long-term prospects. I will say this. I'm bullish on Javonte Williams' short-term prospects. He's now had back-to-back games with over 25 touches. He's had over 15% target share the last 3 weeks. He's become their offense. They put Russell Wilson into kind of this game manager role, which is fine. But again, 25 touches, at least 25 touches each of the last 2 weeks. We expect him to get that kind of workload today. And running backs that have gotten at least 17 touches against the Vikings so far this year, averaging over 17.5 points per game. Broncos are favored at home in this one tonight. Give me Javonte Williams as a top 10 play today.
I like it. Lawrence, one of your shots was Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
He's going to get it done regardless of who's got a quarterback.
Yeah,
right?
Washington has allowed a touchdown to a running back in 4 straight games. They're also giving up an average of 44 receiving yards per game in the last 4 games. We know Saquon can get it done there. And look, again, with Tommy DeVito as a starter, Saquon is averaging over 5 yards a carry. So we're still bullish on him as well.
All right. And Jay, drop knowledge on Aaron Jones, would you, sir?
Yeah, Aaron Jones, I think that he has turned the corner as well with this Packers offense. I think that everyone is rising as Jordan Love gets more comfortable. Now, the Chargers have had a decent enough run defense, but I think that they may they'll lean on the run against the Chargers.
See, you good. You quick on your feet. That's excellent. You're so nimble. This is a television professional.
No.
That's even better.
I'm trying to come to him, but he's so quick.
I'm so glad this kangaroo thing happened just for that.
Yeah.
That was excellent. That might be better than Luigi.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Do you think we need to apologize to Mark Andrews?
There's that. That I do. I do need to turn off the comments and
his season just ended, and now there's a guy on.
But you made it clear that you are a kangaroo expert.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I'm just,
Luigi. And Luigi with the kangaroo.
Hey, it's a me.
The reason I was saying you
where are you hopping?
is I got ahead of ourselves. I got ahead of myself and asked you about Aaron Jones. Who I really meant to ask you about was Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
Shout out to the producers for also being nimble.
Yeah,
Travis Etienne, can you have more on him?
Michael.
Yes.
Travis Etienne. Look, the Titans, we think of them as having this formidable rushing defense, which they did last year. Yeah. Not this year. Now they're a middle of the pack rushing defense. Trevor Lawrence clearly is not right. He's had 3 carries, 3 rush attempts the past 2 games. He is not right with his knee, so I think they'll lean more on Etienne, and he should have a monster day after a hugely disappointing game against San Francisco.
Way to go, man. Back to back, Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne. Sit this next little section here out, if you don't mind. But back to Brian Robinson, who you already called, Matthew, as a top 12 running back, and sure enough, there he is, number 12.
Yeah, it all works together. That was my shot for shot that I think he finishes as a top 12 running back. You just see my ranks. Look, no team in the NFL has allowed more rushing touchdowns this season than the New York Football Giants. 83% of the Commanders' running back touches inside the 10-yard line go to Brian Robinson. So if they're going to score a rushing touchdown against the team that's given up the most in the NFL, it's likely going to be Brian Robinson. They also give up 4.7 yards per carry. That's third highest in the NFL. Commanders are more than a touchdown favorite at home. They should ride Brian Robinson. Again, Antonio Gibson officially inactive in this game. Maybe you see some Cris Rodriguez, but it should be the Brian Robinson show for the Commanders' offense on the ground.
He's been as effective as Antonio Gibson as a pass catcher, which
yes,
we
he
didn't
has.
really expect from
Had
Brian
a big
Robinson.
passing game last week, a couple of big plays, no doubt.
Devin Singletary is the guy, my guy, Lawrence Jackson.
Yeah, we talked about him earlier. Speaking of touchdowns, I like him to get one today. The Cardinals have given up one to a running back in 5 of their last 7 games. We know that the Cardinals also give the 3rd most points per game to running backs in fantasy. And the guy's coming off a career high, 30 carries, the career high, 150 yards, career high, both by far. So I don't know if Dameon Pierce will have a job to come back to next week. Not the same one at the very least.
Exactly. He was already seeing touches to him before. He got hurt. YouTube question, thanks to our YouTube audience as well as our Peacock family. Full PPR had Chase and Andrews Thursday night in a close matchup. Yeah, so needs ceiling today with 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, and 1 flex open. Thank you for the context. Jacobs, Gibbs, Achane, Waddle, Puka, and Tank Dell. Really good team you got there, aside from the unfortunate injuries to Joe Burrow and Mark Andrews. But go ahead.
So, all right. So first off, A-Mill, you bring up a great thing that we didn't really talk about. Depending on your situation, there's a very good chance you had Joe Burrow and or Mark Andrews, or after that Thursday night game, you're in a hole. I mean, Jamar Chase bailed you out with a touchdown, but he didn't have a great game either. You could have had, and I know this could have happened because this is my situation in one league where you had Mark Andrews and you're playing against Joe Mixon and Lamar Jackson. I'm down big.
Yeah.
I'm hurting bad going into the weekend. So yeah, you want to swing for the fences, or if you have a big lead, like the person that's playing in that league should be more conservative with their other choices. So in terms of biggest upside, I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane as your running backs there, and give me Jalen Waddle as your wide receiver. Again, I think any one of those wide receivers can blow up. But if you're telling me the Dolphins are over 2 touchdown favorites at home against the Raiders, you could see Jacobs getting kind of worked out in terms of game script there as well. Puka, we've seen him disappear with Cooper Kupp. We think he's going to have a good game. Again, Puka and Tank Dell obviously have blow-up potential, but just in terms of game script, I'd sort of double down. You need to swing for the fences. So Achane and Waddle, I'm just hoping for a Dolphins explosion, and you get both
Jacobs
of those.
Jacobs is pretty active in the passing game as well, but you're right. When you got a Gibbs and an Achane, it's hard to sit those guys. You got Waddle.
A-Mill, he or she needs ceiling. And so I feel like Jacobs is more of a floor play.
Got you. So 1 flex there. So you said the running backs are Gibbs and Achane. You said the wide receivers Waddle. What's the 1 flex of this group?
Oh, got it. Oh, wow. Okay. So with ceiling. So I was just those 3.
Tank Dell?
Yeah, I mean with ceiling. Boy, I'm trying to go between Puka and Tank Dell here.
Puka against the Seahawks, the first time that they played, Puka went absolutely off, and the Seahawks play a ton of zone as well, which Puka absolutely eats up.
It's a good call out right there.
This is true. Although that first game, no Cooper Kupp and no Devin Witherspoon.
Sure.
Witherspoon wasn't in that as well.
Both
Whatever
big
it's worth,
factors.
I have Tank Dell at 16. I have Puka at 19. That's more of a floor ranking, not an upside ranking. I feel like because Tank Dell has a better Puka would be more of a floor play. All Tank Dell needs is 1. So if Tank Dell catches 2 long bombs, whereas Puka is going to be more 8 for 70 kind of thing. You know what I mean? Which obviously would still be great.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me for upside, I'm going to go Tank Dell.
Baby.
Again, a 48 point over under in that one. That's my answer there. Tank Dell, Jalen Waddle, Gibbs, and Achane for ceiling. Would you guys go anywhere different?
No, I like that. I like how you
look at it like this. Which of these dudes today in their matchups are most likely to get 150 yards? And you will probably say that Jacobs is last on that list.
Yeah.
Next to last will probably be Puka. So there you go.
I like how you put that as well. I like A-Mill's situation. You got to hit hard with injuries, but you still got a lot of depth to play with. Matthew already likes Jerome Ford to hit his over. You got him just outside your top 20.
Jay's very smart.
Thank you.
Look, you
Learned
did
it from the Kangaroos.
You don't dodge kangaroos just on athletic skill.
It's guile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You got to outsmart them.
Yes.
They're savvy.
Right.
You got to stay 2 steps ahead. Kangaroos.
100%.
Otherwise, they get you.
We gotta get some footage of this.
You understand? Like Jay was playing chess while those kangaroos were playing checkers. He's 2 moves ahead of those damn.
They never had a chance.
They never had a chance. Those kangaroos.
I'm telling you, I think I cried laughing at least once a show. It's crazy.
Jerome Ford has 43 touches over the past 2 weeks as well. His 2 highest snap shares of the season have come in those games. Steelers have allowed 100 rushing yards in 6 straight games. And again, you sort of think about how this game plays out. Dorian Thompson-Robinson under center for the Browns. It is going to be a run-heavy attack. You'll see some DTR, but because of the mobility of DTR, I think that opens up some running lanes for Jerome Ford. I expect a run-heavy attack for the Browns and Jerome Ford to be at the head of that. He's my running back 21. I agree with Jay. I believe he will go over his rushing props as well.
Hey, Lawrence, Matthew already expressed some concern about Isaiah Pacheco against that Eagles defensive front.
Yeah, and there should be some concern. I'm not saying sit him if you can't afford to do that, but obviously the Eagles allow the fewest points per game to running backs in fantasy. They're the top rushing defense in the NFL. They've only allowed 2 rushing TDs this season. Pacheco himself has only had 95 scrimmage yards over 1 time in his last 4 games. If anything, try to get it in the receiving game. The Eagles give up 5 receptions and 30 yards to opposing running backs per game.
And Isaiah Pacheco is known for running angry. James Cook ran angry once he came back from that early game benching.
Yeah, and he ran angry after he fumbled the ball back to himself and went on his best run of the night.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to have a really tough day today against the Jets front, which is one of the best rushing defenses in football.
All right. Hey, how about we do this? Let's just keep this full screen up and power through these top 10, shall we? Cooper Kupp with Matthew Stafford coming back, Matthew Berry.
Wide receiver 5, Stafford back. Seattle allows the 2nd most receptions per game to the slot. Welcome back, my little Cooper Kupp.
Garrett Wilson, Lawrence.
Averages 7.5 receptions and 90 yards and 13 targets his last 4 games. Say what you want about Zach Wilson, but he's throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson.
And I mentioned a historic run that CeeDee Lamb is on. Jay, does it continue against the Panthers?
No, I don't think he's going to get 150 yards, but I do think he will have a monster game, as he always does. He's 20-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. He's only 30 receiving yards behind A.J. Brown and is 4 times his price. Doesn't make any sense.
All right, let's go beyond the top 10, numbers 11 through 20. Matthew, right on that borderline. Yep, you have Devontae Smith, who was one of your shots today.
He was. Again, there have been 5 games last year when Dallas Goedert was out, 27% target share for Devontae Smith. I expect him to have to throw against a Chiefs defense that's allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver in 7 of 9 games this year. That's probably going to go to A.J. Brown, let's be honest. But with no Goddard, it really becomes a much more narrow target tree for the Eagles. There's not somebody else that steps up on the road at Kansas City as underdogs. They're ultimately going to have to throw. They'll try to establish the run early, but I think at some point they're going to have to throw. Devontae Smith, a top 20 play for me this week.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He's got him at 17. I said right on that line.
Yep.
He's your number 17. Mike Evans, Lawrence.
Yeah, he's Mr. Give Us a Touchdown for fantasy. He scored in 3 of his last 4 games. On the other side, San Francisco has allowed a receiving touchdown in 3 of their last 4 games. So if the game goes how we expected, that garbage time starts to come in around, then expect it to be Mike Evans.
And Jay, you feeling Deebo Samuel today?
Yeah, I think Deebo might be the strangest player in the whole league, honestly, to get a handle on. I think he might be a top 5 wide receiver in the game on talent. His DraftKings receiving prop today is 47.5. Like, this is half of what Tirico Hill has set out effectively. But against a pass funnel defense in Tampa Bay, I do think that he will get his work today.
And they run a lot of zone. Tampa runs a lot of zone, and Deebo has traditionally done very well against zone.
I think he goes over 47.5.
I agree.
So, Matthew, this is no concern of yours since you're running away with the show league. But, the guys already said they like me starting Will Levis over Kenny Pickett. Yeah. So I would like it if DeAndre Hopkins did work today.
I think he will. He's had 3 games with Will Levis, and he's gotten 13 deep targets in those 3 games. Compare that with 16 deep targets in 6 games with Tannehill. They like to chuck it deep. Levis has a cannon for an arm. Jacksonville, bottom 5 of the NFL in terms of most touchdowns allowed to opposing wide receivers this season. Now, again, it's one of those things that he needs a touchdown because the volume hasn't been there for DeAndre Hopkins, but as underdogs on the road, they're probably going to have to throw more than they want to. It is a good run defense. We do like the over on Derrick Henry's rushing prop, but Hopkins comes in at wide receiver 25. He's a risk-reward, and I'm leaning more towards reward, wide receiver 3 today.
We like the fantasy implications of this Bears-Lions matchup, Lawrence. We haven't talked much specifically, though, about DJ Moore with Justin Fields coming back.
Yeah, well, I think DJ Moore is back today. He was wide receiver 5 on a points-per-game basis in the first 5 weeks with Justin Fields. Without Justin Fields, the past 5 weeks, though, he's been wide receiver 48. Again, we're talking about the Lions defense, who allowed the 10th most fantasy points per game to receivers. So I like DJ Moore to have a little bounce back today.
Did y'all see this cool video of Marvin Mims signing autographs after the Bills game? And one of the fans decides to heckle the rookie and say, hey, no catches. And Marvin Mims handles it wonderfully well. He says, he don't throw it to me anyway. Talking about Russell Wilson. But you know who he does throw it to, Jay, is Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, he's really established a rapport with Sutton. He's relying on unsustainable touchdown production, but at the same time, he gets a favorable matchup against the Vikings defense, which, quietly, Jameis really moved the ball when he came in against the Vikings defense, was able to get some stuff going deep, and I think that Sutton will be the beneficiary of a team that Brian Flores sends a ton of blitzes because he doesn't have a natural pass rush outside of Danielle Hunter, so I think there will be some deep ball opportunities for Cortland Sutton.
All right, let's go deeper at wide receiver, back to Kansas City in that Philadelphia matchup. What are your thoughts on Rashee Rice this week, Matthew?
I like him a lot. I'm at wide receiver 32. I get it. It's been a while because we've talked about Rice quite a bit, but they were off last week, and the week before that, the offense was just brutal. But the fact of the matter is the last game before the bye, Rashee Rice played almost 70% of the snaps. He had a season high in snap rates. Eagles tied for the most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. Rice is tied for the team league in red zone targets. It'll be a Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift game. Make no mistake, because he's playing against his brother. Blah blah blah. The fact of the matter is, it is. It's going to be. And then you see Donna Kelce in the two-tone jersey. It's
Mr. Company Man. Mr. Company Man.
Yeah, this is
Mr. Company Man. If
yes.
that was on Sunday night,
give
me the Sunday night version.
The Sunday night version. It's like, come on, this is gonna be fun. Jason versus Travis. Taylor in the stands.
That's more like it.
Right.
That's Donna Kelce. That's more like it. There you go. There you go.
I'm a fan of the Kelce brothers. I'm a fan of Taylor Swift.
Shout out to New Heights.
Shout out to New Heights, no doubt. It's the coverage is a bit much, but anyway, look, it seems like they found love. They're kissing in Argentina. God bless. But Rashee Rice should benefit from additional coverage on Travis Kelce. I like him as a high upside wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 potential. Again, wide receiver 32 this week.
Hey, Lawrence, I could not wait to unload. This is about 2-3 weeks ago. Couldn't wait to unload Christian Watson.
Yeah.
But Jay is really high on this growth of the Packers offense. Was I moving too quickly on getting rid of Christian Watson?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And if you saw, if you saw Barry's rankings, you mentioned that you like Jaden Reed. You have him at 40, and Christian Watson's at 34, and I think that's for good reason, man. Even though he's averaging only 39 receiving yards a game, he's not coming off the field. 50-plus snaps in 4 straight games. The Chargers just allowed Amon-Ra to go for a career high against them. In this game too, Green Bay, you picked the Packers to win. They're only 3-point underdogs, and the over/under's 44. This to me is telling me that this could be a back and forth shootout. Christian Watson did see the 7 targets last game. His career high, by the way, is 110 receiving yards, and I think we could get that today out of Christian Watson.
Okay.
Career high.
Hey, Jay, Matthew talked earlier.
I'll say this just random. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it in a second. I think Luke Musgrave actually has a nice little game today, too. So we're all on the same page about the Packers offense.
Okay. Jay, Matthew talked earlier about Gabe Davis helping to get Ken Dorsey fired. What does he do today against the Jets?
You know what the Ken Dorsey firing is like, actually? It's like if NBC HR was like, look, Matthew, you've said all this stuff about Jay and kangaroos in Australia, so Lawrence Jackson is fired.
Right.
That's basically what it comes down
to. If you're not here, that's right.
Well done.
I'm speechless at how good that was. Because that's exactly how that shit would go.
Like, top 3 offense.
For a lot of reasons.
You just sat there and let Matthew denigrate Australia. You didn't step up at all. Pack your bags.
Speaking of social media paragraphs, I have all my paragraphs ready to go.
Oh, boy. Anyway, Gabe Davis. I'm out on Gabe Davis. I'm done with him.
Okay.
3 of the past 4 games, he's had 2, 1, and 0 catches. Now, in between that was that monster game against Tampa Bay, but just can't trust dishonest Gabe. Does that work? Dishonest Gabe?
Best. I was just about to say. Best pickup of the season was fantasy football pregame. Saying Lawrence Jackson, you are full time.
How Josh Dobbs.
You are full time. That is I don't care about nobody else. Best pickup of the season was Lawrence
Jackson, no doubt.
All right, tight ends. Trey McBride, Matthew. We loving this Texas Cardinals matchup.
We've talked about him a decent amount throughout the show, and honestly, for the last month and a half. Since Zach Ertz went down, he's the 3rd best tight end in fantasy on a points per game basis, and tight ends that have seen at least 7 targets against the Texans, averaging over 14 points per game. He's got a 32% target share with Zach Ertz out, and that kept rolling with Kyler Murray back under center. He's my tight end 4 today.
Lawrence, what you think about Dalton Kincaid?
He is a fantasy tight end 1 for now and forever. He's averaging 7 receptions, 68 yards on 8 targets the past 4 games. Just to let you know, he has arrived.
If it wasn't for Travis Kelce, TJ Hockenson would be the tight end 1, Jay.
Yep, he's got a great rapport with Josh Dobbs. Kind of reminds me of that rapport that Mark Andrews had with Tyler Huntley at the end of the season a couple of years ago. He had a bit of a patchy start to the season, TJ Hockenson, but now he's just a locked-in absolute monster, top 2 tight end in fantasy.
All right, a little bit deeper. Cole Kmet, Matthew, back to that Lions-Bears juicy fantasy match.
Yeah, I mean, Kmet's been really good.
Or Kmet, if you prefer.
No, Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet.
Yeah, Cole Kmet. I was making
little typo. I didn't see the typo. I was just looking at my notes here. But
Kmet sounds good. Almost like Ashane.
However you spell it.
Kmet.
The fact is that the tight end with the first name Cole on the Bears has had 3 straight games with at least 5 receptions. He's got the 2nd highest red zone target share among tight ends this season. Now, a lot of this production has come with T-Bag, Tyson Bagent under center.
He's still doing that?
And so, yeah, of course. Okay. But now he's no longer there. It's Justin Fields. So we don't know if that connection will continue. Yeah. But certainly it's a decent matchup in what should be a high-scoring affair where they're trailing and throwing against the Bears as well. Because we can no longer call him T-Bag because he's no longer there's no reason to bring him up.
Right. And his last name is Bagent.
Well, but B-A-G, you spell it B-A-G.
No, I get it.
Tyson,
Yeah, I get it.
T-bench.
Right.
Right. But anyway.
But watch the interview on Gets It. It's still very relevant.
Still very relevant. But he's J-Bag. We decided J is now J-Bag.
Lawrence, I already asked you this earlier. Kind of stole our thunder, but Donald Parham, I like him. In place of Gerald Everett.
Touchdown dependent tight end right here. Like I mentioned earlier, 2nd on that team in receiving touchdowns, and the player that's 3rd in receiving touchdowns is Gerald Everett. He's not playing Green Bay, 10th best against tight ends in fantasy, but still, you got the Chargers offense to go off of.
And Jay, one last note on Luke Musgrave, who we talked a lot about today.
Yeah, he's had 51, 64 receiving yards the past couple of games, got in the end zone once. Now, he's only had 4 targets each of those games. He's relied on these long passes for 36, 25 yards, but I think the upside is there, and he's someone who should just grow into that offense as the season goes on.
All right, Sunday Night Football headed to altitude this week. Vikings in Denver for a battle with Russell Wilson and the Broncos. Josh Dobbs, Russell Wilson. It wasn't that long ago people were talking about both of these teams blowing it up and tanking. Now they're in the playoff hunt.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the NFL for you. Coverage of this matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. There is Justin Fields, Bears QB1, ready to pick up where he left off against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, he's ready to go. He's ready to run.
You can really tell by that warm-up shot, right?
Oh,
just looking at that follow-through.
He's
you just know he's healthy.
Oh, sure.
I don't even need to say anything. Just look at that picture. And I mean specifically the guy on the right. Look at that smile. Look at that haircut.
Yeah, he's not with me.
I mean, any other reason to get your weekday started with Bet the Edge? Join Jay and Drew as they tackle the biggest games from every angle in the NFL, NBA, and more. So whether you're targeting spreads and totals, looking for value in futures markets, or circling player props, Jay and Drew have you covered with new episodes every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern. Let's get drunk, shall we?
Yeah.
Put on these beer goggles. Let's throw a few back. Scale of 1 to 5 beers.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to start Najee Harris, Matthew Berry?
3 beers in it. 3 beers a shot, and also trying to get Jay back to my hotel room in Buffalo.
We'll save that for pickup lines.
Yeah, look, I'm just saying, look, Browns have not allowed a running back rushing touchdown in 6 out of 9 games this year. In games in which Najee Harris doesn't get into the end zone, he's averaging under 8 fantasy points per game. Browns allow the 6th fewest fantasy points per game by running backs. It's the lowest over-under on the slate. And oh, by the way, he's backing up Jaylen Warren now. So he'll get a decent amount of work because, to Jay's point, they don't want Kenny Pickett throwing it in this game. I think it'll be a low-scoring, grinded-out game, but 3 beers. He's my running back 24. I don't feel good about him.
What about Deontay Johnson, Jay?
Don't feel great about Deontay Johnson either. Love the talent of Deontay Johnson, but in this matchup against Myles Garrett and the Browns defense, 3 beers for Deontay.
And Mr. Quarterback Proof himself, Lawrence. I'm
It's
sorry.
happened
I just came from Baltimore. These days run together. Amari Cooper seems quarterback proof.
Look, I only need 1 beer to start Amari Cooper. I'm not about to, switch up on the wide receiver 19 with a bye included in total fantasy points versus a Pittsburgh defense who's allowed the 6th most fantasy points to receivers. Both Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs have both scored against Pittsburgh in Week 10. I'm going to still roll with Cooper here.
All right, moving on to Titans, Jaguars. Matthew, I mentioned I just traded Trevor Lawrence, which means he's going off today.
Yeah, he's definitely going off. But I want 3 beers. Jay brought up the fact that he just hasn't been running lately, so you wonder, is there something else going on there? Who knows? The fact of the matter is that on the season, he's quarterback 21.
He hasn't even put 20 points this year.
He has not. 0 games with 20 points. He's had 1 or fewer touchdown passes in 7 of the past 8 games. Since Week 4, Titans allowing touchdown passes at the 4th lowest rate. And a Mike Vrabel team, even if they're, quote, out of it, never gives up. He is one of the best coaches in the NFL. Since Week 4, Titans allow only 12.8 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. He's my QB 15. I'd want 3 beers and probably a shot. I'd need to be pretty buzzed to start Trevor Lawrence and be like, I don't care. There's nothing in the stats or the play that suggests this is a guy that's going to have a monster game against Tennessee.
Jay, by extension, Calvin Ridley.
2 beers for Calvin Ridley. I don't feel great about it either, but he's still Calvin Ridley. He's still the number 1 receiving option in that offense against the. I think he is.
We're going to see today with Zay Jones back.
Christian Kirk.
That'll make it interesting.
Yeah, I think those 2 are pretty close. I think I still like Ridley on talent. Also, he's a guy we forget, he has barely played football. He should get better as the season wears on. Just worried about his quarterback's health.
Lawrence, DeAndre Hopkins.
I feel like a lot of guys here we're talking about, we're kind of just betting on the talent. That's the same case here with DeAndre Hopkins, who's caught 7 passes for 87 yards in the 2 games since the first Will Levis start. I would need 3 beers to start DeAndre Hopkins today, although against the Jaguars in 4 straight games, a receiver has either scored or had 100 receiving yards, but I'm going to need 3.
Interesting. All right, on to Sunday Night Football. Matthew Jordan Addison gets another turn as the wide receiver 1 with Justin Jefferson still not activated.
Yeah, I'd want 2 beers. I mean, that's the only thing that I think saves this here is that volume should get him there because of no Justin Jefferson here. But look, it's not a great matchup, right? I mean, it's my wide receiver 29, so I have him barely as a wide receiver 3. Understand this: since that Miami game, remember the Miami game? Broncos gave up 70 actual points. Since that game, Broncos allow the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and they allow the 5th fewest yards per game to wide receivers. Again, they've been really good defense since getting blown out by Miami. They just had a bad day at the office, and they've really improved. And so Addison should see added attention without Justin Jefferson here. My wide receiver 29, I'd want a couple of beers there. I'd want to be feeling pretty okay, feeling loose. Again, what you're hoping there is volume gets him there, which I think he does.
Okay.
I think he's a wide receiver 3.
Jay, Alexander Madison.
2 beers for Alexander Madison. I wonder if Ty Chandler is going to eat into a bit of his workload after he just looks more explosive, Ty Chandler, and also Madison coming off the concussion, but against the Broncos' run defense, which has gotten better since that Miami debacle. Still, James Cook was able to do whatever he wanted against them when he was able to hold on to the ball.
Lawrence, Jerry Jeudy.
I'm going to need 4 beers to start Jerry Jeudy, and I might be a little light on that. He's only scored 1 touchdown this season to Cortland Sutton 7. He's had 1 game this season over 65 yards. Even though this is a solid matchup, you just haven't seen it from Jeudy this season to feel confident about starting him.
Okay. Seahawks, Rams, Matthew, Darrell Henderson.
3 beers. Look, if you remove that Baltimore game where the Ravens just ran all over them, Seattle's allowing just 3.2 yards per carry to running backs. Only 2 running backs have rushed for more than 60 yards against Seattle. He's splitting time with Royce Freeman. Henderson's averaging under 3 yards per carry in his 3 games with the Rams. And you just think about the fact that, yes, their offense will be more efficient with Stafford back and they'll move the ball. But because Stafford's back and because Puka Nacua is back along with Cooper Kupp, I prefer Henderson and Freeman because, again, Henderson is the passing down guy. But when they get in close, it's really a coin flip as to who gets the goal line carry and gets in close. So 3 beers for me at Darrell Henderson, who comes in at running back 26 for me today.
Hey, real quick, I need show league help. Royce Freeman or Rico Dowdle?
Royce Freeman.
Okay.
Royce Freeman.
You playing me?
No.
What'd you say?
I said Royce Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
Producer Adam.
Just because Dowdle comes into the game. I know he's active, but Freeman should
Banged
have
up.
half that work. Versus Dowdle, it's clean. And you never know if the Panthers come to play. It's
Puka Nacua.
1 beer for Puka Nacua. That's an easy one. He's averaging more receiving yards than Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs.
Okay. And lastly, Lawrence, Geno Smith.
I'm going to need 3 beers to start Geno Smith. He's quarterback 19 in total fantasy points this season. Only 2 games over 20 points this season. And I can tell you that one of those wasn't against the Rams in week 1. He did it versus Washington's defense, who's last against quarterbacks in fantasy. So I would need at least 3. There's just more quarterbacks out there that you could start this week.
All right. The tab, or tally if you prefer, Matthew just consumed 11 beers. Jay just consumed 8 beers. Lawrence just consumed 11 beers.
Oh,
Perfect
damn.
time for some pickup lines. Y'all feeling real loose. Matthew could be taken advantage of.
always.
Lawrence, you are up first.
If I go first, Jay might not have a shot. Look, Kyler Murray, he back. We even think you think he could cover. Possibly they could win the game. I'm gonna go alternate passing line, at least 250 passing yards at plus 120. Forget the little over/under number. We like that plus money over here, right? He threw for 249 in his first game back after 8 years of playing football, right? The Texans have allowed this number 4 out of their last 5 games. They've allowed an average of 305.8 passing yards in their last 5 games. You know who did that? You know who went over 300 passing yards versus the Texans?
Who's that?
Derek Carr and Desmond Ritter. So,
Okay.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Well, come on now. We talking Kyler Murray right here
Yeah.
at plus money. There it is.
I like that one.
No, I like that. That's a good bet.
Jay,
I like
oldie
that a
but
lot.
goodie for you.
Okay, this one hurts me. It hurts my feelings, hurts my brand, but I'm going Najee Harris under 42.5 rushing yards.
All right.
So you know who didn't go over 42.5 rushing yards
Who's
last
that?
week? Lamar Jackson, Keaton Mitchell, and Gus Edwards.
Wow.
They did not go over against the Cleveland Browns. The first time these two teams played, it was comical, the amount of push that the Browns' defensive front got against the Steelers' offensive line. There's just no running room. That's when Najee Harris was a number 1 running back. Now he's been displaced. Jalen Warren is the starter, and I just think that a number 2 running back in a very suspect offense is not going to get 43 rushing yards against the Cleveland Browns. I also think DTR is going to be better than people expect. I think that the Browns will be leading in this game, and I think Najee, my man, my brother in arms, he goes down today and does not top 42.5 rushing yards.
They're both really, really good. I like both those lines quite a bit. I think I'm going to bet both of them as soon as we get to a commercial break here. But what I will tell you is I'm going home with Lawrence. You know why? First off, I buy the argument. I'd rather bet on Kyler than on Najee. Although betting on Najee to fail is always, yeah. But the other thing is Jay, I don't want you to get any credit for Najee. No. You're not allowed to have something positive around Najee Harris's performance.
all in.
You need to own it.
I'm in the foxhole with Najee.
Exactly right. So I'm picking Lawrence here.
All right, Lawrence. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I'm so elated.
Yeah.
We're
Keep
bringing
your
this-
phone on.
We are bringing this show
When Lawrence and
home
I are done, I'll text you.
after this
you
break
up?
with some bar
I want to
trivia.
roll through.
You love that, Joe.
Matthew and Lawrence
Every
locked
week.
up in a tight one. Y'all can discuss this at home tonight. How close y'all are?
Speed round here, guys.
Matthew is 59, 38, and 2. Lawrence 58, 39, and 2. Jay, you got some ground to make up at 56, 41, and
First
2.
place is first place.
Who had more receiving yards, Amari Cooper or Deontay Johnson, Matthew?
Deontay.
Mari Cooper.
Amari.
Who had more touches, David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs, Lawrence?
Ooh, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jimmy Gibbs.
Gibbs.
Who scored more fantasy points, Austin Eckler or Keenan Allen, Matthew?
Keenan Allen.
Eckler.
Eckler.
Who had more rushing yards, Lawrence, Josh Jacobs or Raheem Mostert?
I'm going Mostert.
Mostert.
Who had more total yards, Matthew, Brian Robinson or Terry McLaurin?
Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson.
McLaurin.
Did Tony Pollard finally score a touchdown versus these Panthers?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Who had more rushing yards, Derrick Henry or Travis Etienne, Matthew?
Derrick Henry.
Etienne.
Henry.
Who had more fantasy points, Lawrence, Devin Singletary or James Conner?
Devin Singletary.
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 Who had more passing yards, Brock Purdy or Baker Mayfield, Matthew?
Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy.
Brock.
Who had more receiving yards, Lawrence, Stephon Diggs or Garrett Wilson?
Diggs.
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 Okay. Who had more receptions, Tyler Lockett or Puka Nacua, Matthew?
Puka.
Puka.
Ooh, give me Tyler Lockett.
I like it. Who had more rushing yards, Josh Dobbs or Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson.
Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs.
More fantasy points, Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes?
Jalen Hurts.
Mahomes.
Hurts.
You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here.
Peace out.